Live at NBA All-Star, about to ask your favorite rising stars who they would make their WNBA franchise player.
Something happened recently that has the potential to permanently upend the WNBA. A group of NBA stars were asked a straightforward question. If they were starting a WNBA franchise, who would be their first pick? The overwhelming response was Caitlin Clark, not A'ja Wilson or Breanna Stewart. But the rookie
NBA players were asked to respond to a question about the WNBA over All-Star Weekend. First of all, the fact that NBA players are even talking about the WNBA is a positive thing. And the fact that that's being brought up in questioning with the NBA, in no other years at All-Star Weekend would you have seen WNBA NBA players being consistently asked questions about the WNBA. So
who hasn't even played a WNBA game yet. Let's just say that A'ja Wilson is not happy about it. Is this just about basketball, or is there something more going on here? Let's break it down. The WNBA has never seen anything like Caitlin Clark, even before she has set foot on a professional court. Everyone has an opinion about her fans, analysts, and NBA players, and recently those opinions have sparked a firestorm that left A'ja Wilson in the middle. Definitely the NBA's top players were given a straightforward question during NBA All-Star.
The WNBA side. If you were to have a new franchise, who would be your franchise player?
It'd be anybody.
Off the rip, I'm going A'ja Wilson. I'm from Vegas, so Vegas Aces is obviously running the city, so yeah, A'ja's the one.
It's easy for me. Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark, gotta be.
Not a rookie anymore, but she's tough.
It's tough. She's very skilled.
What she did on the college level and the following that she has, not even from just a basketball standpoint, but from a logistics standpoint, I think every game would be sold out.
I like her demeanor. You can tell she really cares about winning and working on her game.
She's really, really good, really, really talented, and so, and a really good spokesperson.
She's like Curry, the WNBA version of Curry, so can't really turn that down.
Weekend. If you could start a WNBA franchise today, who would be your first pick? This type of question isn't presented at random. No one at an NBA event would have talked about the WNBA in this way in previous years. But things have changed, and Caitlin Clark is the reason why players individually answered questions. The overwhelming response was that Caitlin Clark
would say, considering the ages you go, Caitlin Clark, you've got A'ja who's pushing 30. You've got, she's probably got 5 more years in her. 5 or 6 more elite level years in her. For Nafisa Collier, she's a year younger than A'ja. You've got probably around the same amount of time, and then for Caitlin Clark, you've got at least 10. So you'd still go for Caitlin Clark in that regard, even though I do think more than likely it's probably safe to say I would put Caitlin as the number 3 best player in the world, especially how Stewie's been playing the last 18 months.
Not A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, or any of the other well-known WNBA superstars who have been leading for years, was a college player who hasn't even been drafted yet. And that was a statement in, Caitlin Clark has done something that no
Aces were offered a straight-up trade, A'ja Wilson for Caitlin Clark. The Aces would say yes. I stand by that. If the Aces were asked, they would say yes.
No other player has been able to do in just a few months. She has changed the focus of the entire WNBA in just. This wasn't just a case of some players throwing out random answers. They were making a business decision. A'ja Wilson has been the face of the WNBA for years. She is a multiple-time MVP, a champion, and a dominant force in the league. Would you choose Caitlin Clark, who could give you 10 or more years at the top, or AIA, who has 5 or 6 elite years left, if you had the chance to start a WNBA team from scratch? The NBA players didn't hesitate. Caitlin Clark's name came up again and again. One player said she sells out every game, every single game. Another said she's like Curry, but in the WNBA. And perhaps the most brutal one of all, I'd take A'ja. But Caitlin Clark is going to bring in all the money that, right there, that's why A'ja Wilson is furious, because she knows that as much as this is about basketball, it's also about business. And Caitlin Clark isn't just a great player, she's a brand. This is where things get even more interesting. Over the past few years, the WNBA has been growing, but it hasn't exactly exploded. Players like A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart have been dominant, but the league was still struggling to gain mainstream attention. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly everything changed. Her college games are setting viewership records, her presence is driving ticket sales through the roof. Her impact is so big that even NBA stars are paying attention, which never really happened before. And A.A. Wilson, she sees what's happening and she doesn't like it for years. She's been told she's the face of the WNBA, but now before Clark has even been drafted, she's watching that title slip away, and it's not just because Clark is a great player. It's because Clark is marketable in a way that no other WNBA player has been before. Think about it, if you're a WNBA, mainstream in a manner never seen by any player before her. And for A.A. Wilson, that must be extremely frustrating, since regardless of how many MVPs she wins or how dominant she is, she will never have the same level of marketability and hype as Caitlin Clark. And here's the worst part. The reason this whole situation is so crazy is because A.A. Wilson is aware of it. NBA players were merely presenting the facts. They weren't attempting to be disrespectful. Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing to ever happen to women's basketball, and for a league that has struggled for years to break into the mainstream, she is a golden ticket. But what does this mean for A.A. Wilson? She's still one of the best players in the WNBA, she's still a champion, but for the first time in her career, she's being pushed out of the spotlight, and that's something she's not used to. This isn't just a debate about who's the better player, it's about who's the most valuable player. And in the eyes of NBA players, media, and team owners, the answer is becoming clearer by the day. It's Caitlin Clark. That's why A.A. Wilson is mad. Because she realizes that no matter how hard she fights, she's losing the battle. And this is only the beginning. The future of the WNBA and the fallout from the NBA's picks, with the NBA players making their thoughts crystal clear. The conversation has now shifted to what this means for the future of the WNBA. Because if Caitlin Clark is already seen as the most valuable player in the league before she's even played a game, what will it look like when she steps onto the court now? The WNBA is about to grow. There are rumors that new teams will be added, possibly in big cities like Toronto, Philadelphia, or San Francisco. If that happens, you can be sure that Caitlin Clark will be at the center of it all. Every new team will want a superstar to build around, and even though A.E.L. Wilson has proven herself to be an MVP, the harsh truth is that she has never made the kind of impact Caitlin Clark has. A.A. Wilson's teams have won championships. She's been an MVP, and yet, WNBA ticket sales, TV ratings, and sponsorships haven't skyrocketed because of her, but Caitlin Clark, she's already breaking records before even stepping onto a WNBA court. So if you're a new WNBA team looking for a face of the franchise, who do you pick? The established veteran who's been in the league for years, or the young superstar who's bringing in millions of new fans, selling out arenas, and making headlines every single day? This is the brutal reality that A.O. Wilson and her supporters are facing. The WNBA is a business, and business is about money. And right now, Caitlin Clark is the biggest moneymaker women's basketball has ever seen. Well, this is why NBA stars picked Clark over Wilson. It's why WNBA expansion teams will fight to get Clark on their roster. It's why A.A. Wilson is watching her spot at the top slip away. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just another great player, she's a phenomenon. And as much as A.A. Wilson wants to push back against it, there's nothing she can do to stop it. This is the beginning of a new era in the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark is leading the way. The WNBA has always struggled to break into the mainstream. It has had its stars, its champions, and its die-hard fans, but it never had that one player who could completely change the game. That is until Caitlin Clark, with NBA players openly stating that they'd build a franchise around her. The message is clear. Clark is the future of the WNBA, and that realization is sending shockwaves through the league, especially for players like A.A. Wilson for years. Wilson has been considered the face of the WNBA. She's a dominant force, a multiple-time MVP, and a champion. She's worked hard, paid her dues, and built a legacy, but suddenly none of that seems to matter. When compared to the sheer marketability of Caitlin Clark, this is the harsh truth that no one wants to say out loud. The WNBA values Clark more than it ever. Did A.A. Wilson? The ability to draw spectators, sell out arenas, and draw sponsorships is more important than simply having skill on the court. Despite her talent, Wilson has never achieved what Clark has, which is why she is upset. She understands that this is now about business rather than basketball. The WNBA has never made a profit in its existence and has survived primarily due to NBA support and a small but devoted fan base. However, Caitlin Clark changed that overnight. Her college games broke viewership records,